Chapter 826, Department of Faith Theory. Lu Shu was confused by the appearance of Cloudy and the Blood Devil. He thought that they would kill him, but they suddenly became people who he could chat with. It seemed as if the grudge between them had disappeared. Furthermore, it seemed like they never resented the Heavenly Network. They were of a high position and did not regard the Heavenly Network as enemies. They simply planned everything for their king. How amazing was this king? He was able to make such experts pledge their undying loyalty to him. This was fantastic. What gave this king the right? Lu Shu was upset as he did not have subordinates like them. If he did, he would make them kill the bishop from the Department of Faith Theory. He felt that the bishop was very dark. He became uncomfortable just thinking about him. The impression that the bishop gave Lu Shu was one of a moist snake. It lived in dark and damp places, and its body gave off a rotting smell. Lu Shu always felt that there was something wrong with the method that the bishop used to advance to Class A. If not, his appearance would not be so strange. Others looked younger, while he rapidly aged. As the secret practitioners continued to move forward, Cloudy silently disappeared. Lu Shu did not know where she had gone this time. She said that they might meet again almost immediately. Lu Shu had an indescribable feeling. He felt that they were very close. This was a very mysterious feeling. Lu Shu abandoned this thought and blended in with the crowd. He took the opportunity while no one was looking at him to change his clothes and lie low. The secret practitioners were getting more and more hungry. The crowd was becoming rowdy. The creatures in the forest had either been captured for food or had run away. Now, it was rare to see any creature other than human beings. When they passed by a river, a water-type meta-human suddenly ran to the river and used the current to fish a few large fish. They seemed very appetizing. Some overseas people did not eat fish because they could not remove the scales on the fish. There were some areas where the consumption of fish was prohibited. But now that they were starving, who cared whether there were scales on the fish? It was good enough that they had food. The water-type metahumans became highly treasured as they were able to obtain food. But the water-type metahumans did not celebrate for long. The metahuman who first caught the fish suddenly saw a few secret practitioners surrounding him. "Give us the fish. We will ensure your safety." The water-type metahuman's expression darkened. "I caught these fish. Can't you catch more? So what if you give us these fish? Don't think that you can jump into the river and run away. I'm afraid that you'll be dead even before you get to the river," threatened the secret practitioner. Lu Shu thought this was a disgrace to the water-type metahuman. His class was too low. He could not be firm even on his home ground. Were water-type abilities used for this? As a water-type metahuman, Lu Shu could not continue watching this. He pretended as if nothing had happened and drove away all the fish in the river. Now that there were no more fish in the river, the water-type metahumans could have an easier time. Lu Shu felt that he had done something good. He had wanted to sell the fish. How much profit would he be able to earn just from food? Furthermore, he was the only Class B among the secret practitioners. Who would be able to steal business for him? But this time, he decided to lie low. He would not destroy his own character just for money. Lu Shu felt that he was amazing this time. He was able to view money as dirt in order to maintain his character. After this war ended, he had to tell Nie Ting this and see whether he would be able to obtain compensation. Of course, these secret practitioners were like stray dogs. They would not have that much money on them. After the first water-type metahuman had been threatened, the other water-type metahumans made the same mistake as well. Not only were their fish taken away, some were even forced to catch fish for the others. One of the water-type metahumans was about to cry. "There's no more fish in the water. I don't know where they went." The secret practitioners who were threatening them did not believe them. "How are there no more fish in the water? Do you think that we're stupid? The water-type metahumans looked at one another helplessly. What should they do? They were in despair. There were fish in the water just now. But now, they had all swam away. From Melvin Baker's Distress, plus 499. From. They saw that the secret practitioners who threatened them did not believe them. One of the water-type metahumans pledged solemnly. There are really no more fish in the river, I swear. If there are. Lu Shu listened carefully. He wanted this metahuman to do something exciting. But before he could finish speaking, there was the sudden sound of footsteps from the east. Everyone turned and took a look. Fear was written all over their faces. Was the Heavenly Network back to kill? Lu Shu knew that it was definitely not the Heavenly Network. The Heavenly Network would not appear from the east, where Port Artyom was. When Lu Shu saw the person leading the group, he consciously changed his appearance and put on his hood. That person was Francesco, who he had fought several times. Although they had met each other a few times before, Francesco may not be able to recognize Lu Shu immediately. After all, when they met each other face to face, Lu Shu still had Howard's appearance. After they arrived, Francesco smiled kindly and led the members of the Department of Faith Theory to give out rations. Food appeared from his invisible storage equipment in an endless stream. Lu Shu looked at this from afar. He knew that the Department of Faith Theory was trying to win them over. They had come to give out food when the secret practitioners needed it the most. But the secret practitioners had been mercilessly killed by the Heavenly Network. Even if they rally their forces, how useful would they be on the battlefield? Although half of the secret practitioners at Port Artyom had not encountered the flood of bronze, the news would still spread like a plague. The Department of Faith Theory may or may not know this. Unless they had other plans. Lu Shu observed Francesco from afar. He suddenly realized that the waves of energy from Francesco's body were not stable. Moreover, he seemed much older than when Lu Shu last saw him. It was as if a strong man in his early 30s had suddenly become a 40-year-old man. This had happened to the bishop as well. If this happened to Francesco too, then it was not just a simple coincidence. Francesco laughed. Everyone, please settle down here. The food rations will come to you. You don't have to worry. Some secret practitioners said, we don't want to stay here. We want to go back to Port Artyom. Francesco continued to smile. I'm afraid that's not possible. Chapter 827, Strange Combination of Circumstances. What the secret practitioners wanted most was to return to Port Artyom. There was hot water and food there. Most importantly, there were Class A experts there as well. They would be safe. The arrival of Francesco was not just a gesture of kindness. It also meant that the large organizations did not want the secret practitioners to go back to Port Artyom. What if these secret practitioners returned to Port Artyom and ran away? Furthermore, there were too many uncertainties among this crowd. Why would the large organizations care about how the secret practitioners felt? A secret practitioner roared angrily, we want to return to Port Artyom and escape from this place. We are no match for the bronze-armored soldiers from the Heavenly Network. Furthermore, we think that our lives are more important than profits. Let us return to Port Artyom. The moment he finished speaking, someone beside Francesco charged towards him and was immediately sliced into two halves. The secret practitioners could feel a chill down their spines. They killed someone just like this? Just because he said something. Were these people dumb? Lu Shu felt that they could leave as they pleased. Practitioners could go anywhere. As long as you did not cause trouble, you would be able to leave this place. They did not have food, did not have a proper way out, and had to live in fear. If Lu Shu was in this situation, he did not want to put his fate in the hands of the large organizations, even if he had to be in a state of anxiety and resist his hunger. Francesco's expression did not change even as someone was being killed right in front of him. He laughed. "Everyone, please rest at ease here. The rations will reach you. Sorry, but the tent cannot hold so many people at one time. Please make do with this." Francesco left, but a few hundred people from the Department of Faith Theory walked among the crowd, as if they were guarding them. The secret practitioners obediently sat down like quails. They did not even dare to move. A few hundred people watched over the thousands of secret practitioners just like that. It was like a scene straight out of a fantasy movie. Some of the secret practitioners on the outskirts tried to run away, but the members of the Department of Faith Theory chased and killed them. After they were done, they returned to their positions without a word. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. Some members directed the secret practitioners to take the corpses away. He did not believe that the Department of Faith Theory would be kind enough to help the secret practitioners. He watched silently as the members brought the secret practitioners to dispose of the bodies in the forest. But they did not return either. But Lu Shu did not care about the lives of these secret practitioners. He only cared about whether he would be able to enter Port Artyom and lie low. He would then find the controller. Suddenly, a member of the Department of Faith Theory said to Lu Shu and the people around him, "Come with me." Lu Shu and the secret practitioners hesitantly followed the member. They walked deeper and deeper into the forest. The member of the Department of Faith Theory suddenly stopped and turned to look at them. He had wanted to say something, but he was dumbfounded when he saw Lu Shu. He observed Lu Shu carefully. "Have we met?" From Andera Tambari's distress, plus 1,000. Lu Shu kept the sparrow shade. There was not even a drop of blood on it. The secret practitioners were dumbfounded. They knelt on the ground and offered themselves as sacrifices. They had thought that the Department of Faith Theory was very aggressive in killing people. But Lu Shu's speed was even more frightening. But before they could react, they lost consciousness. The sparrow shade had pierced through all their heads. The moment the member of the Department of Faith Theory recognized him, he did not intend on letting any of them escape alive. Lu Shu was melancholic. He did not intend to kill anyone, but someone had asked for death. Why did they have to destroy his character? Why? What should he do? Should he leave the group and head towards Port Artyom, or should he stay here and create trouble for the Department of Faith Theory? Lu Shu decided to go to Port Artyom. His identity might be exposed, and he would waste more time if he stayed here. He turned and looked at the trees behind him. He then headed towards Port Artyom with determination. It would take 2 days to reach Port Artyom based on the walking speed of the secret practitioners. But Lu Shu would be able to reach it in half a day. He did not go there directly, as there would be many metahumans along the path from the secret practitioners' campsite to Port Artyom. He would not be able to explain why he was heading to Port Artyom alone. He walked through forests, crossed rivers, and climbed mountains. Lu Shu enjoyed the convenience that his abilities brought him. It was as if he was walking on even ground. He progressed at full speed. After all, every second was important in a war. The route that he had chosen was the most difficult route. He did not even see one metahuman. But when he reached Port Artyom, he realized that something was wrong. The port was not as crowded as he had expected. He did not even see any large organizations patrolling Port Artyom. Lu Shu only saw a logistics team busy with their work. But they were very different from the logistics team in the Heavenly Network. They were ordinary people who had been hired on the spot. Lu Shu was puzzled. In the end, he decided to enter anyway. He silently walked to the north of Port Artyom and entered a small city. He then wandered around in the city. He finally confirmed the fact that a majority of the large organizations were no longer here. What was this? Where was everyone? This was different from the information he had received. There was only a handful of metahumans in Port Artyom. Only 2,000 people had died. This was definitely not the full strength of the large organizations. In the end, he could not take it anymore. He pretended as if nothing had happened and asked someone, "Where did everyone go?" Lu Shu was shocked when he heard the answer. The large organizations had headed off to the secret practitioners' campsite in just half a day. Everyone from the large organizations was heading towards the campsite that Lu Shu had just left. They were going to build a base there and prepare to infiltrate the Changbai Mountains. What? Lu Shu walked around the messy Port Artyom. He was speechless. Why was he so conflicted? He should have stayed at the campsite. Couldn't he lie low just for once? Couldn't his plan succeed just for once? Lu Shu looked at the logistics base in Port Artyom. There were some vehicles transporting goods. Lu Shu had treated money like dirt for once just so that he could lie low. But if everyone was not willing to cooperate, then he would not have mercy on them. Chapter 828, Maximum Skill Points for Hiding and Infiltration. You forced me to do this. Lu Shu held this grief and indignation while he prepared to take the strategic materials from the logistics team. Lu Shu felt that this grief and indignation was natural. After all, he had done his preparation, and vehemently fought for the heavenly network. He wanted to lie low. Even though Chen Zuan had not recognized him, forget it. But when he reached Port Artyom, the large organizations had disappeared. Lu Shu could not stand this humiliation. The logistics base was inside the port. Materials were constantly being transported from the sea. They would then be sent to the warehouse for storage and registration, before being sent to the military bases according to their needs. The defense at the port was strong. There were a few thousand people guarding the port. This was considered a high level of security. After all, there were a few thousand practitioners here. Lu Shu pondered for a very long time. He finally decided to go underwater. He went to the north and dived into the water. He swam to the port in the east and waited quietly. He realized that the heart of the port was filled with metahumans wearing the Department of Faith Theory uniform. This meant that the port was now being controlled by the Department of Faith Theory. This also meant that the Department of Faith Theory was ahead of the other large organizations. Thus, they should have more rights. Suddenly, a metahuman wearing the Department of Faith Theory uniform started to stagger towards where Lu Shu was with a cigarette in his mouth. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. He then saw that the practitioner was taking off his belt. Lu Shu laughed. It would be his loss if he allowed the metahuman to urinate. The metahuman stood at the embankment. For some reason, it was as if he had an inflammation. He just could not urinate. The concrete embankment was high above the surface of the water. This was also a relatively secluded area. If not, this metahuman would not have come here to urinate. He did not think much about it. Who would think that this was the result of a water-type ability? No one had used it this way before. The metahuman looked around. No one was around to see that he could not urinate. But the moment he pulled up his pants and prepared to go back, the inflammation cleared and he started to urinate. From Sandro Mazzola's Distress, plus 666. The metahuman was dumbfounded. He saw the dark stain on his pants and started to break down. Suddenly, a large hand made out of seawater stretched out and dragged him into the water. The metahuman wanted to shout for help, but before he could say anything, the seawater had engulfed him. Not long after, Lu Shu came ashore wearing the uniform. But he only wore the top. As for the bottoms, forget it. At least the Phoenix Society had a white uniform. Lu Shu had a pair of white pants that he could wear to match their uniform. Lu Shu changed his appearance to that of a random metahuman called Marazzo. He walked towards the warehouse. There were no other experts in Port Artyom that could defeat him. He could act freely now, right? He had to fight a quick battle to force a quick decision. He could not speak Italian, thus he would be exposed if anyone talked to him. Under typical circumstances, he would nod his head and not speak while keeping a serious expression on his face. But after a misunderstanding with the lady on Sardinia, Lu Shu felt that this method was not too reliable. But Lu Shu encountered exactly what he did not want to encounter. Before long, someone walked towards him. He seemed to have gone to the toilet as well. When he saw Lu Shu, he started to talk. Lu Shu did not understand anything, but he seemed to be waiting for Lu Shu to respond. Lu Shu looked at his anxious expression. He guessed that he had asked a very urgent and important question. As a good boy, he wanted to help others. He paused for 2 seconds. I'm not the actual person, so I can't answer your question. But I can send you to meet him. From Dino Zoff's Distress, plus 1000. Lu Shu was slightly melancholic. It was not easy to lie low. What a pity. He walked towards the warehouse. The area it occupied was sizable. The 20 factory buildings seemed to be full of materials. Port Artyom was not a very big port, thus the materials that were imported in made the port seem very crowded. On the way, Lu Shu encountered some members from the Department of Faith Theory who bowed to him. It seemed like Marazzo was of a relatively high position in the Department of Faith Theory. He had struck lucky this time. Lu Shu looked very angry. The members of the Department of Faith Theory continued about their affairs after bowing to him. They did not dare to speak to him. Lu Shu stood at the door of an isolated warehouse. 2 members of the Department of Faith Theory were keeping guard. When they saw Lu Shu, they did not dare to speak. For some reason, one of the bosses of their organization was looking at them with an angry expression on his face. They started to panic. Lu Shu was thinking of a reason for him to enter. But he realized that even if he could come up with a reason, he could not take out his translation device and show it to them, right? From Paolo Maldini's Distress, plus 1000. From Lu Shu dragged the 2 corpses into the warehouse. Sometimes, he could not help but sigh. He was truly a genius in hiding and infiltration. No one had discovered his whereabouts even after such a long time. The benefits of this method was that after he was done, there would probably be no one left in this organization. Lu Shu looked at the contents of the warehouse and was slightly annoyed. The warehouse was filled with food. There were canned food, grains, dried vegetables, condiments, and so on. They were all the supplies needed for daily life. When Lu Shu saw these, he was unhappy with the large overseas organizations. Look at the collection of gods. They were so generous with their magical stones. There were so many organizations here, but all you had were these worthless goods? If he took all of this back, would Lu Xiaoyu laugh at him? It would not be good if this news spread. The 9th Heavenly King robbed a base, only to bring back a few million kilograms of food? With the 20 warehouses, Lu Shu felt that he could open a grocery. It would not be a problem to feed a few 100,000 people. Should he take the food? Lu Shu felt that he should. It was not that he wanted to take everything. But if he took all this food away, the Heavenly Network would have a much easier time at the battlefront, right? The saying was right. Food should go ahead of troops. The large overseas organizations had mobilized their troops, but their food was gone. This was very interesting. Would the large organizations starve as they fought? Lu Shu felt that he was not just taking their food. He was also taking away their hope for a victory against the Heavenly Network. He felt that this way, he would be worthy of the title of the 9th Heavenly King. Chapter 829, Wrong Thought Process. Lu Shu realized one problem. Perhaps the practitioners overseas had a different taste. He realized that the food in the warehouse were different from what he had expected. He expected rice to be the bulk of the food, but noodles and canned food made up the majority. Besides that, Lu Shu found coffee beans. He was pleasantly surprised. He did not think that this group of soldiers would bring coffee into a war. Drinking too much coffee can cause osteoporosis. This is for your own good, said Lu Shu as he stored the coffee beans into the seal of lands. Eating too much canned food is not good, said Lu Shu. He then stored the canned food into the seal of lands. Suddenly, Lu Shu realized a problem. Back then, Chen Bailey had escorted the transport of the bronze armor as they could not fit into his invisible storage equipment. But Lu Shu had never thought about this. When he saw the seal of lands, he felt that there was infinite space within it. Thus, he had never thought about how big the invisible storage equipment of other people were. Lu Shu thought of a problem. How big were the bishop and saint's invisible storage equipment? How big was Francesco's invisible storage equipment? They probably could not store all these rations. If not, they would not have stored it in these warehouses. They could simply bring it with them. If he had the opportunity, he would take their invisible storage equipment and compare them. One must have aspirations. What if they were fulfilled? But from the look of things, Lu Shu felt that his invisible storage equipment was one of the biggest. Once he was done with the first warehouse, he moved on to the second warehouse. The defense at the warehouses were relatively weak. Of course, this was relative to Lu Shu's strength. It would be difficult for typical practitioners to enter. Lu Shu continued to sneak into the warehouses while keeping his whereabouts a secret. When he entered the 17th warehouse, he counted the number of people he had killed to ensure that his whereabouts would be hidden. He had killed about 70 people. Not only did he clear their supplies and slip into their warehouses, he had also weakened their forces. Lu Shu felt that his method of infiltration was very good. Sadly, he could not promote this in the heavenly network. As he was about to finish clearing out the warehouse, another batch of goods arrived. But this time, there was a massive team in charge of guarding the goods. There were more than 300 metahumans guarding over 30 large transport vehicles. There was something fishy about the sheer number of people. But with so many people around, his infiltration would definitely fail if he stole everything in the transport vehicles. No matter how powerful he was, he could not defeat everyone in the logistics base. Lu Shu followed the metahumans near the warehouse and ran towards the fleet of vehicles. He pretended to help unload the cargo. When the door of the transport vehicle opened, Lu Shu gasped in shock. It was full of standard long swords. Although they were different from the ones in the heavenly network, but there was a similarity among all the large organizations. The number of weapons could not match up to the growth in the number of people. One had a European style, while the other had a Chinese style. But they were the same in essence. Till today, the heavenly network could not ensure that everyone had a standard long sword. Furthermore, after the attack at Tiger Back, many of the standard long swords had broken because of the high-intensity battles. Many bronze-armored soldiers did not have any swords. In the end, Nie Ting issued a command that the bronze-armored soldiers were to have priority for swords. Other practitioners had to give their swords to them. This ensured that the bronze-armored soldiers had weapons. Lu Shu looked at the long swords in the vehicle in front of him. He now understood why there was such tight security for these transport vehicles. But he realized that these swords were not made out of good quality material. He had seen the Department of Faith Theory's weapons before. He had fought them multiple times as well. This batch of weapons was made up of swords that were manufactured in a slipshod manner. They seemed to have been produced just to make up the numbers. Of course, these swords were much better than ordinary cold steel. Wait. Were these swords produced for the secret practitioners? Lu Shu thought about it. It was completely possible. Weapons could boost their courage and win people over. No wonder the Department of Faith Theory did not allow the scared secret practitioners to run away. Furthermore, they were rapidly making their way to the campsite. All the teams were to gather there. So they had been prepared in terms of offense and defense. They would use this batch of weapons to convince the secret practitioners to continue fighting. A large majority of the secret practitioners could not get their hands on weapons. Lu Shu believed that if the Department of Faith Theory could promise them that these weapons would belong to them after the war, these secret practitioners would definitely be touched. As for what would happen after the war, the large organizations did not care much about them. If Lu Shu was a secret practitioner, he would definitely put his life first, because he was still rational. But if everyone was as rational as he was, there would not be so many foolish incidents in history. But how would Lu Shu steal all these swords under the supervision of so many people? He might die waiting in this logistics base. If he used chaos, he could try to break through with force. But the problem was, the bishop and the saint were not far away. They had only been away for half a day. They could quickly fly back. Even if he had the space ring, he could not rapidly store all these swords. After all, he had to store them into the Seal of Lands one by one. Lu Shu panicked. When he saw the food, he could restrain himself. But when he saw the thousands of swords, he could no longer control himself. Although they were simple and crude weapons, they were still weapons. Wait, no. Lu Shu felt that he had walked into an erroneous zone. Was there anything in the world that Lu Shu was interested in, but could not take away? If he could not take them away, there must be something wrong with his thought process. Lu Shu was silent. He pretended as if nothing had happened and placed his hand on the vehicle. Then, he silently stored it. Then, the others looked at where the vehicle had originally been. They were shocked. Where was the vehicle? Lu Shu felt that he was far too smart. Storing the swords would take too much time. But if he stored the entire vehicle, he would be able to finish quickly. While everyone was still in shock, Lu Shu had quickly moved on to the next vehicle. Before anyone could react, the second, third, and fourth vehicles had disappeared. The people beside the vehicles were thrown into chaos. Everyone had escorted the vehicles with great caution, but when they reached their destination, the vehicles disappeared. They could not accept this. But Lu Shu did not care. He just wanted to take as much as he could store, and then escape into the ocean. He had no opponents in the logistics base. Even if a Class B expert attacked, they could not stop him. Lu Shu was confident. Lu Shu, the 9th Heavenly King, was the strongest person below Class A, he had no opponents. Chapter 830, A Perfect Conclusion. Lu Shu made a careful calculation. There were 31 trucks, meaning the number of swords inside must be at least 10,000. The Heavenly Network would be in deep trouble if these weapons fell into the wrong hands. Thus, in order to protect the interests of his comrades, he had to commit robbery. He did it for the Heavenly Network. That made perfect sense. Lu Shu felt that he was committed to a noble cause. In fact, it would be a piece of cake to stuff all the trucks into his Seal of Lands amidst the chaos right now. Besides, given the pathetic number of invisible storage equipment in the world, almost 99% of the practitioners had not even seen one, let alone know how it worked. Moreover, most of the invisible storage equipment had limited capacity and no one had tried to stuff trucks inside before. Hence, as Lu Shu moved along the crowd, he had shoved 14 trucks into his seal before anyone could figure out what was happening. Where were the trucks? The huge trucks? The person in charge of transporting the swords immediately called his superiors to report the incident. He blurted out, "The trucks are gone." His superior was puzzled. Gone? What do you mean by gone? No. I mean, the swords are gone, the reporter said. That made his superior even more confused. So what's missing now? The trucks or the swords? The trucks, and the swords. All of them are missing. The superior was dumbfounded. That had never happened before. It was understandable if the swords were stolen, but what's with the missing trucks? When he reported it to Francesco, Francesco's face turned stern. A powerful one with invisible storage equipment has blended into the logistics space. Francesco knew that things were not as simple as it seemed because even his own invisible storage equipment could only fit 2 trucks, but this guy had already taken 14 so far. Then they received another call, reporting the 15th truck's disappearance. Francesco inhaled deeply. Find him and kill him. After that, he returned to the deep forests. The area had been sealed by the Department of Faith Theory and was declared a no-entry zone. Furthermore, even members of the Department of Faith Theory were forbidden to enter the central region, and only Francesco's most trusted subordinates were seen transporting dead bodies of secret practitioners there. No one knew what was inside. However, people had noticed that the bishop and Francesco had been behaving abnormally after their visit to the sacred garden. Meanwhile, as Lu Shu ran towards the 16th truck, he heard a loud yell behind him. Then, everyone beside him walked away from the truck. Although he could not understand the language, it was clear that the cause of the missing trucks had been discovered. Thus, everybody was cleared from areas near the trucks to prevent further losses. It was not that the Department of Faith Theory was slow in reaction, but Lu Shu was too fast. It had only been 2 minutes since the first truck went missing. Besides, Lu Shu also knew that masters from the Department of Faith Theory, or even the bishop himself, were probably heading towards them. After all, the magical weapons stored inside were crucial to them and no lapses could be tolerated. But Lu Shu's objective was to steal all of them. Nevertheless, now that their guard was up, Lu Shu could not repeat his old strategy anymore. He felt that he had done a good job so far as a spy, and this should end perfectly as well. Since all of the weapons would be transported to the base, he could always wait and take action later. Thus, intending to be a more professional spy, Lu Shu decided to remain still. At this moment, however, a member of the Department of Faith Theory turned to Lu Shu and said something he could not understand. Then, the man looked at Lu Shu, awaiting his reply. Lu Shu was speechless. How sad. The man was still waiting. I'll destroy whoever suspected my identity. Why do you not understand a simple logic like this? Lu Shu said, pitying the man before him. In the next instant, gray threads of sparrow shade exploded from his body like a gray tornado. The threads swirled around him. Then, it spread outwards with the power to destroy everything. Lu Shu's face went cold. He placed his hand on the 16th truck as if no one was around. Instantly the vehicle disappeared as well. People craved the truth, but sometimes they were simply not supposed to know it. In the next second, all of the manhole covers sprang into the sky. Water pillars shot up from the sewage pipes like dragons, crushing the bones of all the people in range. At this moment, there was a wave of energy in the air. Then, a transparent human form materialized right behind Lu Shu. There was once a discussion about which elemental type was the most dangerous after the Class Bs could assimilate with their respective elements. Was it thunder or fire? But there was a different idea. When the air type assimilated with the air, their attacks would be the most difficult to defend against. With the gray threads of sparrow shade surrounding him, Lu Shu was caught totally off guard. As soon as the man appeared from the atmosphere, Lu Shu spun back and caught the long sword with his bare hands. He would have been stabbed in the heart if he had been 1 split second slower. He did not know when the Class B airtype master had arrived. Or perhaps he was an overseer of the logistics base. Indeed, how could there not be an overseer with so many weapons here? To Lu Shu's surprise, the man disappeared into the atmosphere again after his failed first attack. He had abandoned his sword. It was as though he had been totally erased from sight. Just when everybody expected Lu Shu to focus on the fight against the air-type expert, he darted towards the 17th truck with no hesitation. Lu Shu knew that it would be unwise to stay there for long because he was clearly outnumbered. He had to leave immediately. To be more precise, leave with the trucks immediately.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens,